Hi, everyone, and welcome to Cultivating Business. I'm Kevin McLaughlin, Managing Director with Centri Consulting, where I lead our cannabis practice. Our guest today is the co-founder and president of the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, Michael Bronstein. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm sure you're certainly very busy with everything going on in the space here and legislation and whatnot. So I definitely appreciate you joining us to chat a bit.
It's my pleasure, and thank you also for the work that you are doing and that Centri's been doing, both in the industry and also for your advocacy around the business of the industry as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't start out by thanking you and Kevin and what you and your firm are doing to help support those efforts, link businesses together, and the services that the top-notch services that you provide. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Love collaborating with you. And why don't we jump right in? I think it's always helpful to get a little bit of brief background about our guest, and then just your journey within the cannabis space and how you got in.
Yeah, I am someone who had not necessarily been thinking much about the cannabis space except what was going on politically. So I've been involved in cannabis politics now probably for close to a decade at this point. And originally, I was approached by industry leaders that were in Colorado that had approached me really on the basis of having been involved in politics, and said, we really want to be able to shape and achieve an agenda, both from a federal policy standpoint, but also on a state level policy standpoint, and really build out some of the efforts that we were trying to do. And I said to them at the time, I knew that cannabis was going to be a larger political issue, and I said that really there should be some organization around it, that there needs to be professionalization that has to happen within the industry in order to be taken more seriously in the councils of power. And in the halls of where decisions are being made, and the conclusion that I came up with was, you should really have a trade association that's attached to it, and therein lied the foundational beginnings of the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, and we started not long after that, and we had we're one of the few trade associations that has a C6 status at the federal level. And we have been advocating ever since in a number of different areas, but really been recognized by industry leaders, certainly on policy development, standards development, professionalizing the industry, and being able to promote the expansion of the legal marketplace. And we've been doing it ever since. And it's been a really fun time.
Sure, it's been a wild ride over the last 10 years or so, right? I think I just saw Colorado has been recreational for about 10 years. So and I'm sure it's been amazing to be a part of the journey here over the last decade.
It's been different. I mean, I think that when I first joined in doing it, there were a lot of people who who looked at someone like me coming in and doing advocacy on it as being more suit and tie advocacy, which I felt that the industry sort of demanded in order to be taken, in order to be taken more seriously, that to be more traditional, right? So we wouldn't talk, the way that we're talking right now, accountants or consultants, or the way that the industry has grown. Or evolved. And I think one of the most important aspects of this was to create a place for professionalism in the industry, to show that it was really there were jobs and businesses and people really trying to make a go of it. Arguing about the public health and safety benefit, arguing about the economic benefit, being able to make the case around these things. And I think successfully, you really needed both. You needed an active advocacy level, of which, I've been an advocate, and you needed you needed a real firm rooting in public policy and professionalism in order to be able to get companies in like yourselves, who would dip their toes in the cannabis industry and help professionalize the space. It was really important at the time, and we've been able to mainstream that through our advocacy. Attach, even just a couple of years ago, Attach was named Trade Association of the Year by Politics Magazine. We beat out a number of major associations like the Hospital Association, and a number of other sort of really named associations around in DC on it. I don't think any of that happens without this idea that we had to professionalize the industry. So that's something we've been focused on. There are a number of different efforts that we've championed to be able to do that. There are a number of people that we brought to the table to be able to do it. And I think that we're in better position now as an industry from having done it, and have a clearer pathway forward to be able to continue down this path.
No, that's a testament to you and everybody at Attach being able to make such an inroads in a relatively short period of time, 10 years to get in the word like that. That's fantastic. Now I want to pivot to something that I think is near and dear to a lot of folks' hearts. I know you're involved in it, and disclaimer, this could change any minute here from when we're recording it to when it goes live here, but I'm always interested to hear your input and how you see the Safe Banking Act playing out, really in the near term, next year, but in the immediate future.
So safe banking has been, just because podcast no time, we're sitting here on a day where Congress is taking up safe banking potentially as part of the National Defense Authorization Act, but maybe not. It may miss it. The National Defense Authorization Act is a must-pass bill in Congress. There's been a lot of activity around being able to get safe banking provisions into or keep safe banking provisions in NDAA. And those discussions have continued to evolve. What I would say in general, regardless of the time that we speak, there's no issue that has been more apparent and I think more obvious to the general public, but also to people who've looked at public health and safety as why the industry needs to be able to access financial institutions and needs to be able to bank. A lot of the stories that had come out early in the industry, but also even over the last couple of years, where we've had a number of robberies at dispensaries, people who are looking for cash, and organized crime also, all over the country, but also on the West Coast, where we sadly have seen loss of life at dispensaries, just for people showing up to work who've been victims of robbery. And these are very serious issues, and the broader public knows that safe banking has to pass. And for as an industry, it's something that we've been working on for years. This has been a generation of legalization efforts that is also a generation of stifled banking efforts and reform at the federal level. And a lot of us believe that this would be the first real the first real big thing in terms of a priority that Congress might pass, since really the withholding of funds for prosecution of the industry. So there hasn't been that much federal activity up till this point. We just had a passage of a research law, which was the first standalone cannabis legislation to pass both the House and the Senate and be signed by the president. And we think more is to come, and that's what we're working on here.
Yeah, hopefully it has almost a little bit of a domino effect, so to speak, where you start to see a little bit more happen. And curious, are you optimistic about past safe banking? Are you optimistic about some meaningful action of rescheduling or descheduling of marijuana in some way, shape, or form in 2023? You think it could be the year? You think it's maybe a little bit further out?
there's certainly action around the discussion on President Biden's look at whether to reschedule or look at the scheduling of marijuana. And what I would say to you is that the president has asked for a conclusion of the process, and has also asked for it to be done quickly, or to be done as quickly as possible. The last time that this was looked at, it took several years. And I don't think that we are in a several year period right now. I think that we're more, I think it's going to be much quicker that this is being looked at. We've heard the administration say that it is going to be driven by science, this review, and whether the scientific evidence in the administration's view exists to move either a reschedule or a deschedule. And from what President Biden, just to read sort of some of the tea leaves here about it, President Biden himself had said on the campaign trail a couple of years ago that marijuana should be rescheduled. And I think that some of the public comments made at the time were suggestive of a Schedule II designation as opposed to Schedule I, where it is right now. And I think that you could very well see something like that in the upcoming year. We would prefer to see a deschedule. We would prefer to not have 280E applied to the industry as it is being right now, and to the really to create massive challenge for people who are in business right now. A deschedule would be fundamental to that, or a moving down potentially to a schedule to a Schedule III. But we would like to see a deschedule, which would take care of a number of those problems. And we think that there's a lot of relief that could be provided, but there's also a lot of conversation that has to happen, a lot of evidence that has to be put forth prior to a decision being made. So that is something that we're watching and we'll be working on in this upcoming year quite closely.
No, fantastic, and couldn't agree more. I think that the whole 280E is such a burden on so many businesses, big and small, that it just puts them in a hole to begin with from a tax perspective. So, optimistic that can happen in the near term. I think that'll help with, from a growth perspective, really within the industry as a whole. Will get things going. Next topic I wanted to just briefly discuss. We're both from the Philadelphia area, so this one's of a little more interest to us. But want to get your insights, thoughts. Do you see Pennsylvania going adult use in 2023? And then what other states you think have the opportunity to go full adult recreational in 2023?
Yeah, no, I thought when you were saying you're both from Philadelphia, we're going to be talking about the Trey Turner signing, which is good. But I also, in terms of reform in Pennsylvania, it is one of the states that is absolutely going to be watched in 2023. We have a situation now where, Democrats are likely to have a majority at some point in the House in Pennsylvania. Josh Shapiro has won election and has supported had supportive comments during his campaign. And also in the Republican-controlled Senate, there are members that have expressed interest in legislation. So I think that some of the foundational work and the pieces are coming together in ways that they haven't come together before in Pennsylvania. And I would also say that there are a lot of folks that were awaiting what the outcome of the 2022 election would be prior to actually having a conversation around adult use legalization in Pennsylvania. And we've seen other markets move forward around the state, right? We've seen New Jersey successfully legalize, which we were heavily involved in that effort. We've seen New York legalize. We've seen Maryland is now going to be putting in legislation on it. So you're talking about the border states of Pennsylvania, which could, it could be a top five, the fifth largest market depending on the numbers in the cannabis industry on it. It could be a little bit lower, but it's a major. It's a major look as to this upcoming year as to what can happen. And I think that the table is the politics are there to have a much more serious discussion about legalization than has ever happened in Pennsylvania previously, with the results of this election, but also with the time that has passed by and some of the politics that have gone around outside the state. I'm seeing a discussion that I believe is much more serious than it ever has been around it. And I do believe that we will start to see this conversation really pick up.
No, that's great. And great points there. Jersey, New York, now you got Maryland. So a lot of these border states, Pennsylvania potentially could be missing out. So glad to hear that it's catching up steam here based off of previous elections. And don't want to take up too much more of your time here. And I'm not going to hold you any of this, but would love to get, one or two of your big predictions here for cannabis as an industry, as we look forward to the new year in 2023.
As an industry, the industry itself faces a lot of opportunity and also a lot of challenge. And it's going to be incumbent upon us as an industry to overcome the obstacles that we see in the market to be able to grow the marketplace. And a lot of what we've seen is that we are right now some of the victim of our own success, where there are a lot of people who look at the marketplace, look at the burgeoning marketplace and say, there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also been a lot of challenge in this marketplace. And I think that the way that we deal with those obstacles, right? The way that we're dealing with banking right now, or maybe have to on a continual basis, the way that we're dealing with 280E, we must remove 280E. It has to happen. And that is something that we are heavily invested in and focused on. You look at standardization of the industry, you need to be able to have, and we've spent a lot of work on marketplace standards, which we believe that in order to nationalize a marketplace or to be able to have branded product in a number of these different areas, that standards and a lot of the laws that are at the state level need to be able to conform and comport with each other to be able to have that type of opportunity, that type of scalable opportunity. When you look at the illicit market, the illicit market right now is probably trading 3-to-1 relative to the licit market in the United States. That gap has to close, right? We need people buying legal product from legal dispensaries, and in moving from a more a setting of prohibition to a setting of infrastructure and sales and professionalization of an industry, those things need to accelerate, and those trends need to accelerate. And I think that if they do, the industry is going to be in a really good place. Everybody sees the opportunity. Everybody sees this more mainstreaming. We have to get past some of also where the broader public is on this, even though they're supportive of legalization. We still don't, we still have not seen necessarily normalization of some of these issues. And I think once we do that, the industry is going to be set up for success. So that would be widely my prediction over these next couple of years.
We'll have to wait and see, but I think folks in general are a little bit more optimistic now than they were even a few months ago. So time will tell. And taking up a lot of your time here, Michael, I definitely appreciate you coming on. Thanks for everything you do as part of Attach, as an advocate for the industry and the space over the years. And look forward to chatting soon.
Thank you. And I was excited to be here. And thank you for all the work that you've done as well. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And look forward to seeing everybody on our next episode of Cultivating Business in early January. Have a happy and healthy holidays, and see you in January.